All three of my kids are sleeping, so I'm gonna try to record this video real quick while they're still sleeping upstairs. Hopefully they don't wake up. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, where my channel is all about me being a mom and raising 3 boys in a city in a country that I did not grow up in. We are currently doing, my husband and I are doing a series on why Cambodia, but this week we're taking a break from it because of an emergency that came up. So I'm gonna tell you guys what happened to our son Zaydok. He is a twin. Him and Zeke are twins, and he is 4 years old. And we had a really scary thing happen where we almost lost him. So it's been definitely really scary and a lot to process and think through. So this happened on a Monday morning, and I was at a kind of like a Bible study / prayer time with some friends about 20 minutes away from our house. And Dewey had taken the boys and went to a house that we were working on getting ready for some friends that are going to be moving to this area. And a couple of the other girls from our team were going to go also to this house and help Dewey, and some of them were there already. And so I wasn't there, but from my understanding what happened was Dewey had just gotten there, we're just getting set up, Dewey was just telling everybody like what needed to be clean and stuff. Zeke and Zay were running around, and I had Creed with me at the Bible study. And apparently the boy, or Zaydok anyway, Zeke was downstairs, but Zaydok had gone upstairs, and the way the houses are set up, they're called patela wangs, and like the bedroom or office that's upstairs looks down into the living room. So here you can see the windows. This is not the house he fell out of the windows in, but it's set up exactly like this, and then it looks down into like our living room, and we still have balloons up from Creed's birthday, but yeah, those would be like the windows he fell out of. And so it would have been like 3 meters, which is about 9 feet that he fell down into like the living room space on the hard tile floor. And Zaydok had opened up that window, and the wall right there is really low, and so he had stepped out, and there was like a little ledge about this wide, but we're not quite sure what happened. Somehow he managed to fall down over the edge, which is not hard to imagine for a 4-year-old boy. And so Dewey said that he heard Krista yell, "No, Zaydok!" And Krista said, our teammate, she said that she's seen him falling kind of like in slow motion. And Dewey heard Zaydok hit. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard the sound of like a body smacking onto tile, but it is the worst sound ever, especially when there's dead silence afterwards. Anyway, so yeah, Dewey heard that sound, and then he just heard dead silence, and he yelled, "Zaydok!" And Dewey was upstairs, and like he was trying to go down the steps. He went so fast that his flip-flops fell off. And he got to the bottom, went around the corner over to where Zaydok was laying on the floor, and he was motionless. His eyes were rolled up in his head, and his body was kind of stiff. He's kind of laying like sideways, and he wasn't responding. And Dewey said like so many thoughts went through his head in that minute. Like, yeah, it was so scary. Zeke was downstairs and saw Zaydok land and hit the ground, but he was like facing Zaydok's back, so he didn't really like see Zaydok's face, which is probably a good thing, or he was scared, but he would probably be even more like traumatized from it. So yeah, that was really, really scary. And then he started responding, and then he started like screaming, like started moving, and then he started screaming. I wasn't there, this is just what Dewey was telling me. So Dewey said within like 2 to 3 minutes they were loaded up in the car and heading to the hospital. Because here it's not like in the States, like you can call the ambulance, but it might take them a long time to get there. It's faster to just take your kid or whoever to the hospital. So Krista held him in the back seat, and Ming Sak was there, our house over. She took care of Zeke, she kept Zeke, and Krista held Zaydok, and then Dewey drove. He said he used his horn a bunch and flashed his 4 ways and drove to hospital as fast as he could, which is about 10 minutes away. And it's a pretty good hospital, it's pretty new. And I'm not sure at what point Dewey had Krista call me and at the Bible study and say, "Hey, Zaydok fell pretty far, and we're taking him to the hospital. You need to come meet us at the hospital." And they told me which hospital and stuff. Oh my goodness, like panic just went through me, and I told the ladies I was meeting with, I was like, I have to go, like Zaydok fell pretty far, and I just started crying. And I started gathering up my stuff. I had Creed with me, I was trying to put on my baby carrier because I was driving moto, and they came and laid their hands on me and prayed for me, which was so sweet. Thank you guys for that. and I told him I could hear Zaydok screaming in the background, and so even though like he's screaming and stuff, like it's a good thing that he's screaming. It means he's alive, conscious to scream. So yeah, I left, drove my moto with baby Creed and my ergo, and I tried to drive safe, but I also drove a little bit fast, but I made sure I drive safe too, because I did not want to end up in a wreck too. And Krista met me at the door. We went up into the ER, which is where Zay was, and they had done a blood test on him. They had a neck brace on him, and he was laying on a cot, laying still. They were getting ready to do a CT scan when I got there. So he was pretty out of it at this point. He was like really sleepy, which I think is like normal with concussion. So he would like fall asleep, wake up and cry, fall asleep, wake up and cry. And different doctors kept coming in to like check on him, and nurses and getting his vitals and everything. And like they would try to like shine a flashlight in his eye and stuff, and he wanted nothing to do with it. He would just like cry, and he just used his one hand to push him away. Then they got a neurologist doctor to come in, and so he kind of assessed Zaydok and tried to get him to move, make sure he can move all of his arms and legs, which he could. His one shoulder on the arm that he wasn't moving as much, I think is like bruised. It's black and blue now, so I think it got bruised. And I think that's just why he hadn't been moving it as much, but it was fine. So yeah, as soon as I walked in that hospital ER room, and it's kind of an open room, but I walked in where Dewey was, and I was like, hey Zaydok, mommy's here. Like I hear him kind of whimpering. There's a doctor right there right then, kind of messing with him. And I was like, hey, mommy's here. And Dewey just turned around, and he like, I've never seen Dewey look like that before. Like he just looked like he felt so bad. And like he was just so glad to see me, and so glad to have like another person there. I mean, Krista had been there, our teammates had been there, but still just to have like me there. And he said the whole time, from the time it happened until I got there, he was just wishing I'd be there, wishing I'd be there. So they put an IV in Zaydok, and they put oxygen on him at his nose. Soon after that, then they wanted to do the CT scan. I was allowed to be in with him. I had to wear the big metal things. They moved him over on the bed. He cried a bit. They waited a minute, let him settle. He went back to sleep, and then they were able to do the CT scan without sedating him, which was really nice. I was really glad. He held so still. The bed kind of moves in and out a little bit, and like he just stayed sleeping the whole time. I could stand right beside him. So soon after we got back from the CT scan in the ER room, Zaydok was coughing, and I had my arm kind of laying on his belly with my hand up here, kind of just watching, observing, making sure he was okay while he's coughing, and I could feel his stomach churning, and I almost said like, hey, he's getting ready to throw up. And then he was throwing up, and because of his big neck brace that he had on, like the throw up just kind of stayed in there. And so I like helped him roll over so the throw up could come out. And yeah, it was a mess. It got all over his clothes and all over that neck brace and stuff. We had to keep it on, we couldn't take it off. So we cleaned him up as best we could, and he was kind of crying, and like, it was awful. Anyways, we got him cleaned up from that, got him moved into a clean bed and resettled, and then he threw up again with more blood in there. And I think some of the like nurses and stuff at this point were starting to get pretty worried. So an hour or two later, we got the results from the CT scan, and the neurologist doctor came in. He is used to working with adults, specializes with that, not with kids. And so he showed us the x-rays, and he had Zaydok had one really big fracture across like the lower half of his forehead, and then he had two little ones, like one above each eye. So he said that yeah, his neck was fine. We could take the neck brace off, which was really nice. So the doctors and nurses recommended we transfer to a different hospital where they have a children's neurologist doctor specialist. So Drew and I weren't sure. We talked about it, prayed about it for a minute, and we decided, yeah, we go ahead and do this. So they transferred us via ambulance, which was my first ambulance experience here in Cambodia. So me and one of my friends, they made us sit up front by the driver, which I was kind of disappointed. I would have preferred to sit in the back with Zay. But before I get in, I told him, I was like, I'm right up here, you know, there's a window, I can talk to you if you need anything or whatever. And thankfully, he stayed really calm. There were so many answered prayers during this trip, and that was definitely one of them. Even though he's in the back of the ambulance by himself with three like people who, they spoke English, but their English probably wasn't like super clear. He stayed really calm and wasn't crying or asking for mom or anything. So they ran the sirens and honked their horn a bunch. We got to the other hospital. So they hooked Zaydok up to like a monitor thing, a mobile monitor thing, like with the stickers on his chest thing. I forget what they're called, but that way they could transfer him via ambulance. When we got there, there was like a crowd of people. It's a really big children's hospital. There's a crowd of people out front, and they were all just like staring at us and like wondering what happened, asking what happened. When they opened the back ambulance doors, everybody's like peeking in, trying to see Zay, see what condition he was in. So they carried him in via stretcher, and we had to go in and register, and then they put us right into ICU, which the way this hospital is set up, it's like you have one big room with maybe 40 beds in it with little like sectional walls about halfway up, and each section has like maybe 10 beds in it. So we got put in one of those beds, and on either side of us were like two tiny little babies. They're so tiny and so cute. The nurses got hooked up to IV and oxygen again, and they gave him some pain meds. You have to provide your own bedding. So my friend that was with me, she went out, there's a little market outside, went out and bought like a blanket and a pillow and like a little mat. It's like this. And it's like cooler material that you put on top of the sheet because it's not AC, so it's really hot in there. And the sick kid lays on this and it helps keep them cooler. And then the neurologist doctor, the specialist, came in to see Zay, look at his x-rays, and he talked about doing another CT scan, but he decided that the ones he had were good enough. And he said that, yeah, Zay would not need surgery, but we were worried about that. He would not need surgery, and there was a little bit of bleeding between his brain and his skull. Not bleeding on his brain, but like outside of his brain. And they said that would be fine, that would just drain away on its own. So they wanted to observe him overnight and then see how he is the next day, and then possibly move him out of ICU to just like a recovery room. So that night we stayed in there. You had to provide your own food. So some of our friends brought in food, and they brought in Zeke and Creed for a little bit that evening just to see him. But then here, other kids are not allowed in the ICU. So they allowed Zeke to come in for maybe like 5 minutes, which was really sad because both boys kept asking all day to see each other. That was one thing that they kept asking about. And even Zay, in his condition, like, he kind of wanted to see Zeke. But at least they got to see each other for a little bit. We brought Creed in, just said hi to him for a minute, and then took him right back out again. And yeah, just a couple things that are different about the ICU, like you take your shoes off at the door and you come in barefoot, and you have to provide all your own food and all your own bedding, and a parent has to be there with the kid at all time. And they prefer that there are neighbors. If you hear them, it's just our neighbors. We live in a city, and our doors and windows stay open pretty much all the time. And so they prefer only like 1 or 2 adults in there with a child at a time, just so it doesn't get too crowded. And they don't want to create too much commotion for all the other sick kids that are in there also, which I totally understand. You're not allowed to charge your cell phone, because if everybody did, I guess it would just be too much. So when I walked in, the first thing I noticed in the ICU room was there was a cat walking around underneath the beds. So anyway, I guess I'm just trying to say, like, it was definitely a cultural experience, but it was really good, and we're thankful to have a children's hospital here with a specialist. So yeah, Dewey stayed in there for the night with Zay, and he slept like just on a rice mat underneath Zaydok's bed. So he said he got about 2 hours of sleep that night in 30-minute segments. They kept the lights bright in there because it's an ICU, they have to keep an eye on the other patients. And Zay was in and out, awake and sleeping. Dewey said Zay didn't get very much sleep either. So I came home, I slept with Zeke and Creed. I let them sleep in my bed with me, and I didn't sleep very good either. And I was dreaming a bunch, and I'm sure it was just the stress of everything. So the next morning, about 4 a.m., Dewey was messaging me saying, hey, can you please come in here? I'm so tired. I want to go home and sleep. I didn't see it till I woke up maybe at 6. Anyway, and I rushed around, got ready, took the boys over there, dropped them off, and she made scrambled eggs for me to take in for Zay and Dewey for their breakfast. So it took me, I drove my moto, and it took me an hour to get in there because it was traffic jams and it was like pretty bad. Anyway, motos usually takes faster than a car here because of all the traffic jams. You can get your moto in and around stuff, or going in and around stuff quicker than you can a car. Anyway, I finally got there, and when I got there here, they had moved Zay and Dewey out of the ICU and into just like a recovery room, which was also set up the same way. Probably had 40 kids in it, but these kids definitely weren't near as sick, and they were more like sitting up in bed and looking around. They were obviously a little bit healthier. So Zay was pretty happy to see me, and he had been asking for me quite a bit. And then Dewey left to come home, and I think he slept about 5 hours. The ladies on our team, they kept the boys all day, so I stayed in the hospital with Zay till dark. I had one friend that came in, and then she was able, like at lunchtime and stuff, to go out and get food and bring it back for us for lunch, because Zay did not want me to leave his bed. He didn't even want me to leave to go to the bathroom. I had to like beg and bribe till I finally was able to go to the bathroom near evening, leave him to go to the bathroom. When Zay needed to go to the bathroom, I had to like carry him and push the IV pole to the bathroom, and so she would help me, or sometimes the mom of the kid in the bed next to me would help me. So yeah, it's definitely like a community thing, like I help you, you help me, which I think in one way like is really great. And so yeah, we would chit chat back and forth with the people in the beds beside us on either side, and definitely like helps you feel maybe not quite as alone as the hospital room in the States where you're just like all by yourself. Anyway, Zay slept on and off throughout the day. I think we played one game of Uno and maybe tic-tac-toe. So when I walked into the recovery room, I seen there was also a cat there walking around underneath the beds. Throughout the day, that day, I pointed the cat out to Zay, and he got a lot of entertainment out of watching that cat walk around underneath the beds and beg food off of people, and usually make him smile. Anytime a nurse would come to check on him and check his IV and stuff, he had to cry. He was scared it was gonna hurt. He didn't complain about having head pain at all. He still doesn't complain about it. This is getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I'm not sure if it's because he's 4 and he knows he doesn't feel good but isn't quite sure where it's coming from, or if it isn't hurting him that much. I don't know. So yeah, they wanted to observe him again a second night for his head trauma, and then they said possibly the next day he could go home. They said oftentimes for kids like this, they keep him for a week just to make sure everything's okay. So at this point, we were telling everybody, our friends and everybody, to really be praying hard because we would really like to go home. Zaydok was asking to go home, and the hospital was so far away from our house and just all of that. So yeah, during the second day, Zaydok started like, well, he was swollen already the first day and bruised. You could see like where he had hit like fresh bruise marks, but then by the second day it was starting to turn like black and blue and purple, and the swelling was changing, like it was going down, but yet it was like definitely still there. It's hard to see on the pictures a little bit. He wanted chocolate milk. His one thing was chocolate milk, so we would get him chocolate milk and he would just chug the chocolate milk, which is good. It helped him stay hydrated. So Dewey came in that night and he slept in there again. And in the recovery room, the parents are allowed to sleep on the bed beside the kid, if the kid is little enough. So Dewey did that, and Zaydok and him both slept better. I think for Zaydok, he could see Dewey. Dewey was underneath the bed, and so he felt safer. And then for Dewey, he was slightly more comfortable. It wasn't as hot because he was up on top of the bed, and he bought a little fan to hook up there, so him and Zay had a little fan they could use, and so they both slept a lot better in a single bed, in a hospital bed. So it was definitely crowded. Then, and also it was definitely answered prayer because a bunch of people had been praying that they could, especially Zay, could sleep better. So that would help his healing. So the next morning, the specialist, the doctor came in again, and he said that if Zay can prove that he can swallow his pain meds, that then he can go home. So Dewey bribed him with some chocolate milk, and Zay managed to swallow it down. I think it took 3 swallows, and he was really proud of himself. He grinned big afterwards, and the doctor said he could go home. So that was a huge answer to prayer too, that we have to stay in there for a week. So I brought the car in that morning, and I left earlier in the morning so we wouldn't get stuck in traffic jam. It still took me an hour to get in there by car, which I would have waited till later, probably been an hour and a half. Anyways, I got in there. I had to park pretty far away from the hospital because there's no parking close by. We got all the paperwork done and all that. It doesn't take near as long as it does in the States to do release paperwork, thankfully. Then we carried Zay out of the hospital and told all of our friends that we'd gotten to know in there. And it ended up, because it was kind of far away where I parked, we ended up getting like a little tuk-tuk, which is just like a taxi, think a moto with a little cart behind it. And we took that to where our car was and then drove home. So, oh, and another answer of prayer was So the first morning on the way in, my moto was almost out of gas, and I kept praying, Lord, please help not to run out of gas. And I finally decided, like, because of the traffic jam and stuff, I was like, I'm gonna have to stop and fill this thing up. So I stopped at a gas station, filled it up, and I put $4 worth of gas in it, which is like amazing. Before, I run out of gas with my moto and had to push it to the nearest gas station and only put like maybe $3.75 in it. And this time I put $4 in it, so it definitely was running on prayer. We had so many answered prayers. The next day on my way in, I drove the car and again was in traffic jams. Not quite as bad, but it still took me an hour to get in there, and the car was running low on gas. And I kept like praying, Lord, please help the gas light not to come on, because if the gas light came on, then I was going to stress out and cause all this extra stress and would have to like detour out of my way to go find a gas station. And the gas light did not come on. We went in and picked up Dewey and Zay, and then we were leaving, heading home, and it wasn't but like 5 minutes down the road after we left the hospital, the gas light came on, and which was fine because at that point we could stop for gas. It wasn't like we were in a hurry or rush to, I wasn't in a hurry to get to the hospital. So that was definitely another answered prayer. Then, so yeah, we were in hospital 2 nights. Zay has been doing really good since then. It's definitely answered prayer. He's got a lot of bruising, purple and red behind his eyes, and even in the back top of his mouth, he's got bruising. He woke up one morning and said, Mom, after you sleep a long time, does your throat hurt? And I was like, no, but I'm guessing he's just sore and it probably has bruising in there too. Zay has been pretty grumpy, which can be like because of the concussion, and also could be from the pain. Or the first day or two he complained of being dizzy when he would sit up really fast, but now he doesn't complain about that anymore. He never complains about having pain or his head hurting. We're trying to keep him really still and in like a calm, quiet, dark environment, in bed a lot, which has been hard because he wants to get up and move and be active. So he's taking long naps every afternoon, which is really good. We pulled our mattress into our bedroom and he just is sleeping in our bedroom, so we can observe him. Pretty much don't let him out of our sight. I'm really thankful for the progress he's making. I'm so thankful that he's alive and that he is here with us. Like so many times Dewey and I had looked at each other and be like, this could have ended so differently. Like our little family would be so different without Zay. It would totally change the dynamics. And I'm just so glad for God's grace and mercy and healing in Zay that so far he seems to be fine. Like nothing major seems to be wrong. I'm just so thankful. We have to go back for another CT scan in the beginning of December just to make sure everything is healing and just to check in and see how he is. If you think about it, continue to pray for healing. Thank you.